What's going on, everyone? Jeremy here from The Quartering, and everybody's favorite show to dunk on, She-Hulk, which is at the bottom of the barrel according to new ratings, at least the bottom of the barrel on Disney Plus. Now, look, I understand that She-Hulk is hashtag not for me or not for everyone, and thus the low ratings aren't exactly the savage burn that some people might think. It's a lot like the show Miss Marvel, which is a show that Disney pushed from a diversity and inclusion standpoint, a representation standpoint, but also to kind of like flesh out their overall like offering for different global communities, which is fine. So these shows, you're going to end up with situations where you have far fewer viewerships, a smaller pool to pull from, but that doesn't necessarily mean that you shouldn't have the show. Some shows just have lower viewership. Just like I did a video about a movie that I actually liked over the weekend, and I just knew that that wasn't going to be like a banger, but I thought it was still worth making. And the biggest complaint about She-Hulk, outside of like the kind of the cringe CGI, I'm more forgiving about the CGI than some people. Like, I see it and it looks a little bad, but it doesn't really ruin it for me unless it's very bad. And She-Hulk is very bad, but it's fine. It's the cringe writing. And over the weekend, a couple of viral tweets went out and absolutely savaged She-Hulk, which, by the way, is currently sitting at a 40% audience score. So it's not a show that really has grown on people. They're using their post-credit scenes to generate buzz, which I think is smart. So they have like they had the Megan Thee Stallion, the twerk heard around the world. People talked about it, but people really aren't tuning in. At least that's the latest data we have from Samba TV. See, streaming services, they keep these kind of things close to their chest unless it's a good number. Then they tell us. The fact that they're being quiet about She-Hulk actually tells us a lot more about how the viewership is. And you saw this tweet by just a random tweeter, apparently. Sprat Semper Tyrannius says, puzzled at how She-Hulk could be getting such a lukewarm reception with this kind of genius in the writer's room. And of course, it's our old friend Dana Schwartz. If you don't remember, the Dana Schwartz saga from, I think, 2 years ago or a year or two ago, where she blamed South Park for ruining a generation of men. And people kind of forgot that this is the same woman. This is the same woman in the writer room. And this is a tweet that she tweeted on back in September of 2019. So they just saw Blade Runner for the first time, and it's great. But Harrison Ford is the villain, yeah? Like, it's about 4 slaves who escape and come to Earth as fugitives just for the chance to stave off passing, and this random hot cop is on their tails ending them? What? Why are we supposed to like Harrison Ford in this movie, aside from the fact that he's Harrison Ford? I don't get it. You see some of the replies. I don't get it. We know. Really don't know what you're getting at here. That's just the correct read on the movie and a fairly cognitive take after just one viewing. What? What if Blade Runner is morally complex, and the mere fact that the replicants are escaped slaves does not absolve them from everything they do, the same way that Deckard being aligned with the authorities doesn't absolve everything he does? I mean, diversity hires always shine the brightest. Listen, I mean, you see all these like moral ambiguity is hard. Quote, you just don't understand nuance, they exclaim. I mean, you have like, Blade Runner is, and you have, how in the world does a modern TV writer not know one of the basic tenets of film noir? A hardened detective getting pulled into a case where it turns out everything is not as simple as black and white. Morality with obvious choices is the core of that genre. I mean, like, I guess that's true. Now, some people could grow for, it's been a couple years since that take. And, of course, hiring this person probably has nothing to do with who they know and has everything to do with their immense talent. But you have, I mean, She-Hulk getting really like, it's understandable that like you have bad writers on the show. When you take a look at like this episode 4 review from Bounding into Comics, Jacob Smith writing, I'd like to take a moment to personally blame every single person reading this review for my own personal pain and suffering. Because if the writers of She-Hulk, Attorney at Law, have taught me anything, It's that audiences exist solely for me to project my own insecurities and bad life decisions onto. Now, if you saw the 4th episode of She-Hulk, it is quite bad. There's like a B plot where she's trying to get dates. No one wants to date her, but everyone wants to get a piece of She-Hulk, and it has so many, like, the cringe is maximum level. You see, if you thought there was no way that anything could top last week's Twerking Hulk episode in terms of channel-changing quality, I regret to inform you that it took only 7 days for Disney Plus to lower the bar even further. Okay, so you have, he writes, let's put it this way. After sitting down and reaching the conclusion of She-Hulk's 4th episode, is this not real magic? My immediate reaction was to end it all. 13 minutes later, and I was wishing why I was not the, these are very dark takes. But like, since the editors and bounding to comments won't allow me to submit a video of myself going on, blah, blah, blah. The episode's A plot involves Wong, a Sorcerer Supreme, by the way, who they emasculate and make and turn into a joke, seeking Jessica's help in using the law to stop Donnie Blaze, a former Kamartaj student turned failing stage musician, from using magic for his personal gain. The reason for Blaze catching Wong's attention: during a stage show, Blaze accidentally teleports a young girl by the name of Madison into the Sorcerer Supreme's home, an act which interrupts his Sopranos watching session and alerts him to the performer's dangerous and untrained use of the mystical arts. Folks, when head writer Jessica Gao told Variety that none of us in the writer's room are that adept at writing a rousing trial scene, she was serious as a plane wreck. Not only does the entire legal angle of the episode make absolutely zero sense and hinge entirely on Wong being dumbed down, yeah, see, I mentioned that too, for the sake of Gao's favorite fish out of water comedy, it's an attempt at presenting a humorous witness instead subjects us to the absolute comedy goal of nonstop drunken white girl jokes. That's right, it's 2022, and progressive women still think white girl wasted jokes are peak comedy. Honestly, I've seen episodes of Diners, Drive-Ins, and Dives better. Diners, Drive-Ins, and Dives have more compelling storylines. Of course, aside from how Marvel no longer cares about anything outside of providing fodder for Tumblr gift sets, if this one thing this series has shown us is that single middle-aged progressive women in Hollywood hate men. This episode is no exception, as his B-plot revolves around Jen's attempt to use a dating app and her subsequent discovery that while no one is interested in dating her as usual career woman self, everyone wants a piece of She-Hulk. And by the way, I always love how her phone has a picture of Captain America's rear end. Like, she's clearly objectifying him. That's okay. But then they also did an entire episode on how She-Hulk, was getting objectified, and that was bad. Oh, it's literally right here. The next, okay, yeah, perfect. Yeah, same page. Me and this writer would probably get along. Saying that the women behind the show are narcissistic would be an insult, but rather a summation, not an insult, but a summation of facts. Why do I say this? Well, the only man that manages to win her heart comes across less like a human being and more like a robot whose personality was programmed on a pop feminist fan fiction. An attractive and muscular doctor, Jen's not Tinder match, arrives at their date and immediately declares that he doesn't want to talk about himself and asks Jen to talk about herself. Later, intently, almost creepily so, as if reading from the How to Seduce a Middle-Aged Woman guide, asks Jen to tell me more about how you felt and about how her first day at her new job voluntarily chose to read her copy of Roxane Gay's Bad Feminist when left alone in her apartment for an extended period of time. Everything about this show feels like it was written for middle-aged women living in New York or Los Angeles who haven't been in a functioning relationship. I mean, there is nobody else who could identify with this type of content besides them. Hilariously, their entire fanfiction is undercut by the fact that after spending the night with Jen, an awakening to find her human form, the doctor immediately leaves because she looks nothing like the woman he went to bed with. This would actually make for prime comedy if the writers had any self-awareness regarding their worldview, but sadly there's no humor to be found here. Despite being marketed as comedy, it's clear that the last thing the showrunners truly cared about was making audiences laugh. The entire time I was watching the episode, I found myself debating whether going and ending things as credits roll, and despite Jen's in-show tease, quite possibly the most unfunny stinger of all time, I found myself no closer to an answer. And it goes on. Definitely read their full review on the website. And remember, this is the same writer that wrote this article. I criticized South Park for spawning a generation of trolls. So the trolls came after me. This was like the perfect encapsulation back in 2020 of like, oh, I punched a beehive. Oh, why are all these sexist bees stinging me? It was like the perfect thing. The trolls and in-game theorizers that both sides are equally bad cynicism that had spread from the 2016 election into today, all of it had a flavor too familiar for me. A TV and comic book writer who spent her middle years watching Comedy Central too late at night. It was the ethos of South Park. In retrospect, I typed, it seems, and this is her tweet, it seems impossible to overstate the cultural damage done by South Park, the show that portrayed earnestness as the only sin and taught that mockery is the ultimate inoculation against all criticism. Yeah, I mean, the show is a comedy. But of course, then she went to the Washington Post at my lunch break. Massive alt-right accounts with hundreds of thousands of followers had sicked their sycophants on me, claiming that I was trying to cancel South Park. By the time I got home from work, nearly half a dozen videos on YouTube had popped up like a poisonous mushroom, in which men raged that I was fat, ugly, social justice warrior, liberal snowflake who couldn't take a joke. Never said that. I actually said that she's really attractive. If you look at her various Instagram spicy posts, she's a good-looking woman, or was at that time. I mean, like, this is the same woman that wrote this piece that's writing She-Hulk. Not all things are for all people, and certainly She-Hulk is not for me. I hope you enjoyed this video. If you did, make sure you leave a like on it, and if you haven't yet, click that red subscribe button, and we'll talk to you again real soon.